As we mentioned, Congress is back in session and gun control is at the top of their agenda. The House Judiciary Committee is marking up 3 separate gun bills. The Disarm Hate Act would ban gun sales to anyone who has been convicted of a misdemeanor hate crime. The Extreme Risk Protection Order Act would encourage states to adopt red flag laws and remove firearms from high-risk individuals. And the Keep Americans Safe Act would ban high-capacity magazines. That bill was introduced back in February by Congressman Ted Deutch, a Democrat who represents Florida's 22nd district, including Parkland, the site of the February 2018 school shooting. Congressman Deutch is on the Judiciary Committee. He joins me now from Capitol Hill. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us. What is the latest you're hearing from your colleagues on the Judiciary Committee on this issue?
Well, we're literally meeting as we speak in the Judiciary hearing room just behind me. We're taking up today right now the Extreme Risk Protection Order bill, and then we'll be going to my legislation banning high-capacity magazines. There are over 150 co-sponsors for my legislation. People understand that there's just no reason that anyone should need to be able to fire off more than 10 rounds at a time. This is common sense. It's widely popular outside of Washington. We're going to pass it out of our committee. Hopefully we'll pass it in the full House soon and send it over to the Senate, where Mitch McConnell is going to have to decide whether he really cares about keeping communities safe.
So speaking of the Senate, the majority leader, as you know, does not want to bring to the floor any gun legislation without the president's support. What is your sense of this approach?
Well, it's an outrageous approach. I'm quite certain that on plenty of issues, and certainly this was true when President Obama was in office, Senator McConnell recognized that Congress is a separate, co-equal branch of government. We do not take our orders from the President of the United States. The fact that he's trying to hide behind the President and refusing to move forward with legislation that has the broad support of the American people. In the case of the background checks bill that we sent over almost 200 days ago, it's supported by 90% of the American people. He's got to have the courage to actually do the work of the United States Senate on behalf of their constituents and not try to hide behind President Trump.
Is there any specific bill or part of a bill that is most important for you that the president does support?
Well, I don't know. I sat in the White House soon after the shooting at Stoneman Douglas back in February of 2018. And President Trump said then that he was going to be the president that passes background checks. He also pointed to my Republican colleagues who sat at the table with us and told them the reason that they hadn't done anything was because they were afraid of the NRA and they should stop being cowards. And my message to the president is he should remember what he said that day. He's gone back and forth on this, but he's expressed support for background checks. I think it's time for cowardice to end wherever it comes from. It's time to stand up to the gun companies on behalf of the American people who are demanding action to help keep our communities safe.
So recent polling shows that 68% of Americans believe Congress will not enact any significant gun control measures. I mean, can you say at this point that you will prove them wrong?
Well, I can't do that, but here's what I can say. The movement that has sprung up, certainly after Parkland, but it goes back before that, the families who have lost loved ones, who have been involved in this gun safety movement for years, and the young people after Parkland who are tired of seeing their friends die. They're tired of constant code red drills in their schools. They're just getting started. Those kids, those young people helped to deliver a gun safety majority in the House for the first time. That's why we were able to pass the background checks bill. That's why we're doing the work in the room just behind me right now. And they're not stopping. They're going to increase the pressure on McConnell. And just as there are so many of my colleagues who used to think they could ignore their constituents and do their work on behalf of the gun companies and their millionaire lobbyists, so many of them are now former members of Congress. Senator McConnell is going to see the exact same thing happen because of the passion of the movement coming from these young kids, started by these student leaders. He's just going to have to decide. I don't know whether it's going to happen now, but I can absolutely commit that we are on the path that's going to lead to significant change because there's such passion behind the activists who are leading that movement.
I'd like to ask about another topic. On Monday, the House Judiciary Committee outlined parameters for a possible impeachment inquiry into President Trump. That is ahead of a Thursday vote on a resolution to determine whether to recommend articles of impeachment. What are your thoughts on that step?
Well, I've been clear that we don't require a full vote in the House floor to start an impeachment inquiry. What the Judiciary Committee has been doing is we've effectively been in the midst of an impeachment inquiry. We have the power to go forward. We have the power to compel the witnesses that the administration has blocked from appearing before us to come in. That's why we're in court. And what we're laying out in this resolution is simply the way forward over the next few months for us to conduct our investigation into all of the ways that the president's actions may lead us to take further action. That's our job, and we take it seriously. And this week we'll have an opportunity to lay it out in even greater detail for the American people.
Finally, Congressman, I want to get your take on today's news of John Bolton's departure as President Trump's national security advisor. What kind of person do you want to see step into that role next?
Obviously, I think when it comes to President Trump and our foreign policy, to the extent that we're able to actually have someone who is responsible and measured and thoughtful and willing to stand up to the president when he throws out ideas that don't advance our interests, our national security interests. That's what I'd like to see. But before we even get to that, I'm so concerned with what we saw transpire. The president said he asked for Bolton's resignation. Bolton said, no, no, no. That's exactly the opposite of what happened. It's just further confusion. In this case, it's in our national security policy. We've seen it in our foreign policy. And what's so concerning is the message that sends to the rest of the world when they see the kind of confusion and the lack of leadership coming out of the administration. It sends a bad message to the rest of the world. And frankly, our decision, the president's decision to constantly go after our allies while he continues to say good things about Vladimir Putin and others, I hope that he'll be able to replace Bolton with somebody who's willing to stand up and speak out on behalf of our country. We'll have to wait and see.
Congressman Ted Deutch, thank you very much for joining us on Red and Blue.
Thank you very much.